2023 of the various funds and also the payroll. We're not going to go through all those in detail, but we would be glad to answer questions after we get through with this presentation. And there's a lot of moving parts. Is it my eyesight or is that focused on?
That's a little off.
It's a little off, that's what I'm thinking.
It's pretty blurry.
So maybe I had,
Yes, sir.
I got eyes are going shot.
I'm gonna have to go to Facebook so I can.
I got this. There it is.
That's better.
Jeez.
I thought it was mine, man.
So now it's blurry to Justin.
Yeah, Justin can see it better.
of course, tonight is our budget workshop, highlight in yellow. Next Friday, Friday this week, Friday and next week on the 12th is our annual city council retreat, and it will be at Meridian Technology, South Campus this time from 9 to 4. And then we have scheduled, if necessary, on August 16th, we can have another special city council meeting, budget workshop, if you all feel it's necessary after tonight. That's the same as the city council meeting night. And then in the salmon color is just things the city clerk will publish a notice on our budget hearing on the 24th. On September 6th, we would be scheduled to have the public hearing on the FY 2023 budget. And then after the budget hearing, if you're prepared and satisfied, you will take action to adopt the FY 23 budget by resolution.
It's normally in August, so.
If not, you've got the hearing out of the way on September 6th, and then when you come back for the second meeting on September 20th would be an alternate date. You could actually adopt the budget resolutions at that council meeting. Of course, our fiscal year starts on October 1. We're the same as federal year. We run from October 1 to September 30th. And then we have a deadline. Kim will have to submit our FY 2023 budget documentation to the state auditor by October 31st.
I must have missed the email on the retreat.
I did too. That's okay.
It was
First time hearing about it.
well, we sent out the budget schedule, let's see, back in
For me to miss an email is nothing.
May 6th, and it was on that schedule. So it was in with all the budget stuff.
I just
So
didn't see it, I guess. I don't have a July.
There's a lot of moving parts to the budget, and so if we were to just go through it in detail, it would take a substantial amount of time. So what I'm trying to do here is provide some highlights on key points that I think you would be interested in. And I think the first thing, we have 4 primary funds, and to show the fund balance in those funds shows you pretty much where we're at as far as financial stability. And those 4 funds, of course, are the general fund, Guthrie Public Works Authority, and then our 2 stabilization funds, general fund and Guthrie Public Works Authority. And if you look at the budget sheets, it shows you what the fund balance at the end of each year. So in FY 20, that's the fund balance of those 4 funds combined, 5.5 million. And it wasn't, but 5 years ago, the beginning or ending funding balance of the general fund was only about 350,000. So we kind of come a long way over the last 5 or 6 years. And then FY 21, you'll see general fund went down some, and over here is a schedule of the primary budget transfers we made. And a lot of the reason for shuffling money out of the balance of the general fund, we were applying and still apply for a lot of loans through the, I call it Farmers Home Administration still, USDA. And USDA looks at the balance of your general fund. And so we got turned down on a grant because we had too much money in the general fund. They don't look at all the other funds. We appealed that one, and they agreed because we had gotten so much CARES Act money because of COVID and stuff, that that's one of the reasons why our general fund had such a healthy balance. Well, in order to be eligible, we moved COVID money we created a capital equipment fund, and money that was in the general fund for buying equipment, we moved over there. We moved some of the COVID, ARPA money and the CARES Act money into the stabilization fund so it could sit over there till we needed it rather than sit in the general fund. So that's primarily the reason why it went down, was it was strategic on our part to move it to other funds in order to remain eligible for USDA grants. In FY '23, we are proposing that there will be an overlap of the city manager position if we bring the replacement city manager on in January. Potentially with my vacation hours, and that overlap is about $75,500. That is a one-time expenditure. You won't have two city managers every year. So we are taking that $75,000 out of fund balance. And that's why, if you look, though, it went down from FY '22 to FY '23. In the Guthrie Public Works Authority, footnote number 3, 2 one-time expenditures that we're going to propose taken out of the fund balance of the Guthrie Public Works Authority is a one-time expenditure for holiday lighting. And we are approaching OG&E and others about participating with us. We anticipate that's going to be about $100,000 to put new holiday lighting in downtown, which we think will add to tourism and retail sales as part of the Christmas event that we have. And we're also exploring to see if those LED lighting, we can change colors so we could use it at other times of years. So when you have other holidays or special events, you could do a color scheme applicable to lighting downtown for those particular holidays. Red, white, blue on July 4th. The other item is temporary, a 2-year approach, and we're taking $100,000 and out of the Guthrie Public Works Authority fund balance this year and next year, and then we're moving another $100,000 from the general fund or GPWA operating fund to give us $200,000 to add 3 firefighters or EMTs. And I'll explain it more, but what we're doing is we're providing that funding for a 2-year period so that we could put those 3 additional EMTs in position. During that 2-year period, we will be working with the county and the state to explore other funding options to permanently fund those 3 positions. If after 2 years we don't have permanent funding, then we can't continue to fund them out of fund balance forever. And after 2 years, then the city will have to look and make a decision. Can we afford to continue to run the ambulance service in the format that we have it today? But we'd like to buy a couple of years We've had some discussion with county leadership, individuals of state. We think there's a potential over the next 2 years, we may be able to identify and get some additional funding to help pay for the EMS service that we provide not only in the city limits, but we also provide it to roughly 2/3 of the county as well. So we're buying some
Those would be
time.
recurring base then that you're exploring with county and
Correct.
state?
Correct. It would be annual. And footnote number 5, just in general, you can see the reserves or money that's not budgeted is $7 million that we have in reserve in those 3 funds at the end of 2023. And the benefit of having some money in reserve or unbudgeted is it provides financial stability and capacity to address downturns in the economy. They're predicting everything right now as far as what the economy's going to do in the next 12 months from, we'll be broke as a country to we'll be in recession to whatever. This provides us some flexibility with having the $7 million. If we see a dip in our sales tax, we don't immediately have to do a knee-jerk reaction and cut budgets like people want. We've got money that we can draw from to systematically make decisions once we know what's going to happen. And everybody knows that with the influx of all the federal money the last couple of years, when that money disappears, the economy's going to adjust in some way.
No question.
How serious it adjusts is nobody knows. The other benefit of having this large a reserve is potential matching funds for grant opportunities. A lot of our matching money comes out of CIP, the 3/4 cent sales tax, and other funding opportunities. But if we had a opportunity for a grant that was very meaningful to our community, we could pool money from there to match that grant. And then the third thing is because we have limited resources in our operating budget. If we have $1 million of revenue and we have $1 million of expenses, we may have $2 million of projected needs, but we can only spend $1 million because that's our new revenue. But because we're operating lean because of that, if we were to have a major equipment repair that was unforeseen or something, we can always come back and budget some of that fund balance if we needed to have a major expense like a piece of equipment broke that wasn't in the budget. So it does provide us some flexibility to have those funds in the budget. And I did provide this PowerPoint to our 2 city council members that aren't here tonight. I think they were going to try to watch it on either Facebook or on GTV 20 so that they could follow along if they were doing that. And I've also told both of those council members that if they had questions after tonight, we'd be glad to meet with them one-on-one to address any questions that weren't addressed tonight or if they weren't able to listen to questions they had. Some general comments about the budget. If we project a 5% growth in our sales tax, and we were anywhere from 4 to 8%, and so we projected 5%. So that's $317,000 of new money in the general fund in FY23. Well, that doesn't go very far when you look at some of the expenses we have, but clearly general fund expenses cannot grow faster than the general fund revenue. We saw that in 2017. And for a number of years leading up to 2017, our expenses in the general fund were growing at a faster pace than the revenue. And then there was funds taken from Public Works Authority to make up the difference, and then, of course, that depletes the Public Works Authority, depletes your reserves. We don't want to get back into that situation. So we have to try to live with the revenue we have each year and not spend one-time money or reserve money on operating expenses. From that increase, and there's some other increases too, but that's a major increase in revenue. Built into the FY23 is a 2% cost of living adjustment for all employees. All employees step increases, and we're estimating a 20% increase in health insurance costs. Last year, we estimated a certain amount, and it was a little bit less. So when you compare the budget of last year and this on health insurance costs, it won't mathematically be 20% because we ended up with less than what we budgeted last year. And we're hoping that we end up with a little bit less than 20% when we get all the quotes in, but we budgeted for a 20% increase. On the general fund expense adjustments, items that we try to increase that we know will be affected by inflation, we try to make some adjustments to fuel, postage, electric, and natural gas. Items generally held at the FY22 funding levels, materials, supplies, and services. So we're going to have to do with less, even though we budget the same monies last year because of inflation, we won't be able to buy as much. But to balance this budget, we have to decide what we're going to live with. And so we decided that, as administration, that those items will basically be the same level as FY22, and we'll just have to make it work. We may do somewhat less. Now, in Public Works, we do have some grants like the RTP Elbow Trail Project, where we're providing labor as match, and the grant's paying for materials. So that will keep our Public Works crews busy on some projects because we've got some grants like that where we're getting the materials out of the grant and we're providing the labor. If we find it necessary, we can, of course, always draw from the fund balance, but we didn't want to start out the budget year drawing from the fund balance. We only want to do that because it's one-time money if we find it necessary. We are working, and we'll have a meeting of our finance committee. We'll be presenting a resolution to amend the trash rates. And if we go back to in about 15 years ago, our markup was 65%, and we made about $200,000 more in revenue in trash rates than we do now. To make the same $200,000, it looks like all we'd have to do is do a 50% markup, and that's not a 50% markup of what our customers currently pay. That's a 50% markup on what Waste Connection charges us, not to confuse it, and that'll be clear. But of that additional $200,000 of revenue that would be generated by that resolution, if it's passed, $100,000 will be transferred annually to the general fund, and we're funding an additional equipment operator for Parks Department. And we'll do that every year going forward. And with adding trails and adding additional workload to our Parks Department, we felt that we needed to try to add at least one more equipment operator to Parks Department. And I think it's justified because in the transfer station with the limited staff there, we have to make up when that individual's gone. So we have people in the general fund working at the transfer station part of the year. And so this helps accommodate that. And then as we talked earlier, 100,000 of that money would be transferred in FY '23 and '24 to the fire fund to partially pay for the 3 additional EMTs. And then additionally, the other 100,000 for those 3 EMTs are coming out of the Guthrie Public Works Authority fund balance. As I indicated earlier, that's a 2-year stopgap measure to provide us an opportunity to pursue other funding that would be of a more permanent nature, that would be annual revenue. First year to identify it, put it in place, and then this, anytime if you pass any kind of legislation, it takes a year for it to go into effect. Other one-time expenditures, some of them I've already pointed out, out of the general fund, budgeted fund balance, we're taking the $75,500 for the overlap of the city managers. Out of the general fund stabilization fund we've substantially, we're required to have $1 million in that fund, and we got 1.4 million. So we've authorized ordering 2 police cars, and we will pay for those because it's a one-time expenditure. We will transfer money from the general fund stabilization fund to the equipment fund for the 2 PD cars and used pickup for animal control. And then again, the 50,000 from the GPWA fund balance to equipment fund. Want to point out, back in 2016, there was a resolution adopted that in September of each year, based on the June CPI index, water and sewer rates are automatically adjusted. The CPI index this year was 9%. So in this budget, sewer and water rates will go up automatically based on that resolution for the bills that are mailed out on or about October 31st of each year. And our customers will see a 9% increase. And that's automatic, set up by that resolution.
Leroy, question on the police vehicles.
Yes.
I thought a number of years ago when we had that challenge with a large number of police vehicles that were coming, their end of life was due or passed. I thought we had established a plan to replace so many on a routine basis every year.
There was a lot of discussion, and at one time, we were taking equipment out of the CIP 3/4 cent sales tax. But since that time, the thought process of the collective city council was to find other avenues to fund equipment and use the CIP sales tax for capital improvements. Water, or the wastewater treatment plant, overlaying streets, those kind of things. So there was never any money set aside annually for replacement of police vehicles. And so we have just tried to find opportunities. One of the opportunities is the grant, the Victims Advocate grant each year. We buy 2 police cars, and we basically lease those to that program. And then when they're paid for, they're still in good shape because they're not used. And so when we buy new cars for that program, then we're able to take those 2 cars and move them to the police department. So We've just had to find money at various locations, but there is no systematic plan.
Okay, but in terms of a need, are we gonna anticipate that we're gonna have approximately a 2-car need to replace 2 cars every year?
Well, if you do it systematically, yes,
Okay,
but that's not been built in.
I understand.
And I don't want to interrupt, but I remember Don standing up here, tried to get us to give him 2 more cars after we'd already given y'all cars, and fire department got their big truck and all that stuff. We spent a bunch of money on those 2 departments, and I was just, no, you can't have it right now. Nobody else had their piece of the pie yet, so. But yeah, that was at the 2-year point that you were asking for those cars.
Yes. So yes, that is a need.
I'm just wondering if we're not setting ourselves up for the same kind of scenario down the road.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Budgeting for our community, our needs, and as we grow, we will have growing pains. And our needs and expenses, our goal probably grow faster than our revenue during a growth period. And so we will have some challenges as a community on how to keep funding everything and still live within the annual revenue that we collect. There will be challenges. I think the FY '25 budget will be the most challenging. I think next year will work. This is '23. '24 won't be so bad, but I think FY '25 may present some challenges. This is just the highlight of the various funds, the general fund, to show you that our expenditures budgeted is $20,017,000. Our revenue's $20,019,000. So our revenue's about 2,000 more than what we're projecting as expenses. And that includes the $75,500 that we budgeted out of the fund balance for the overlapping city managers. Next one, Public Works Authority. Public Works Authority is in pretty solid shape. It's a general fund that is limited to primarily sales tax revenue is the one that struggles. But in the Public Works area, you can see expenditures of 15.4 for next year, revenue of 16 million, so 710,000 above our expenses. But bear in mind, we got a lot of utility lines to replace. And so we're going to have to figure out a way, so we don't want to, oh, gosh, we got $700,000, let's just move that over to general fund and answer our questions. But if we do that, then we're not going to have fund to match grants and fund the replacement of sewer lines, water lines, other utility improvements, painting our water towers, those kind of things. And then fire EMS, again, you can see the $200,000 that we put in temporarily for the next 2 years to fund the additional EMT positions. And what we do is just put in enough general fund money to balance that account once we look at our revenue and our expenses. And then just a new one this year, the sports field hotel tax, is the increase in the motel tax. That will generate about $155,000 a year based on our projection. Our land and water conservation fund grant we got in 2021. We have finally been released to do a cultural resource study so that we can get the Section 106 environmental done on it. So in about 60 days, we'll be able to start the design documents to put that project out for bids. This is a list of what was in that, which was a scaled down version in order to do a $2 million application, because we thought the max grant we could get would be $1 million. Just a preliminary updated budget with inflation, it looks like that project would cost at least 2.4 now. In lieu of going back and modifying what we had planned, two things will occur. Just like the CDBG project we recently did, we were fortunate enough to go back to the Department of Commerce. They put some additional grant money in, and we put additional local money in. I don't know that the Oklahoma Recreation Tourism Department has that flexibility to do that, but we will ask them if the new estimate is 2.4, we will ask them if there's any way they could bump the grant up another 200,000 and we put 200,000. But if not, what we will probably do is propose, because this tax is for maintenance and improvements, we would propose that we use CIP money or other money that's set for other projects, go ahead and do this, and then replenish that 400,000 over the next couple of years out of the hotel tax that's designated for motel, or motel tax designated for sports. So that proposal will be coming to you probably as soon as we solidify the updated estimate. But I just wanted to give you a heads up. I'd be glad to try to answer questions. Kim, I don't know if I can answer every question. I've been through all the line items in the budget, but you know, I'm getting a little old now, and I'm not sure that I remember every detail. But I try to answer any questions you have.
Why would we not go ahead and just try to find the funding rather than do temporary? Because if we don't find something in 2 years, it's going to be pulling teeth to pull that money. So why do we not find it first and then hire?
For the fire department?
Yes.
Because there's not a stream of money there that's a, if you want to find $200,000 of revenue that is repeating revenue, then you're going to have to go through this budget and delete $200,000 out of another department.
Why wouldn't we go negotiate, go talk to the county, go talk to whoever we want to talk to, get it agreed to, and then bring the people on? Not bring the people on with city money and then hope that we get agreements from other parties.
The thought process, and I stand to be corrected, but my understanding and the thought process when the firefighters came and made the presentation of their manpower needs, they presented some pretty compelling evidence that the number of calls and the workload on our EMT and fire department had grown substantially more than we even realized. And it's just very difficult to maintain our service level without adding the additional positions down. And if we don't add those 3 positions, I'm not sure we can maintain the quality and the level of service we're providing. Is why we are going ahead and saying we think we, for the first time in a while, have had indications from the county that they realize the 3 mills of revenue generated by the EMS district is not adequate to fund the needs of the EMT and ambulance service out of the county. And they're willing to visit with us and look at some opportunities where there can be other county-generated revenue to help pay for those EMTs out in the county. Sounds pretty promising, but even if we visit with them and work it out next month, there still have to be a sales tax issue or whatever voted on, and it'll take a while to come in place. I don't think we can operate the fire department without the additional manning, without creating a hardship And that's why we're recommending that we do this for a 2-year, to buy us a couple of years, so that we can see if we can get the additional funding. I know the state's working on it. Every rural EMT district's in the same situation. And there have been cities that have done away with their EMT service. They no longer do it. And if we do away with our EMT service or change it where it's only city only, which I'm not sure is possible, but then the county has to contract with IMSA or one of the other services. The quality of service and the response times, you see on the news all the time about the response time at IMSA. I don't think that's a quality of service that our citizens want or desire. And so, you know, we've got a lot of reserves that we can afford to do this for 2 years, and it buys us time. But clearly, if we don't work something out 2 years from now, we're going to have to make a decision. Can we still afford to provide quality EMT service for 3/4 of the county and inside city limits? I don't know if I clearly answered your question, but that's my thought process.
We also, they need 9, not 3.
They can't house 9.
I get that, but that's what their proposal was. The 3, my understanding, is because they've already found them, the 3. They're out there ready to be hired, is that?
We have, and my memory's a little faded, but I think we have 2 of the 3.
Okay. Initially, it was 3 that they had, but so
Yes.
there's at least 2 of the
We-
3
we-
that are ready to come on, because that's their conundrum, trying to get these people hired, according to the fire department. But, you know, the county's gonna have to step up.
I just think it's crazy. The city has needs, but yet we are bleeding to the county on
I
EMSA
know.
services.
So what's
we've
the
put
option
The
to-
county before the city.
So the option is to redraw the boundary for the ambulance, and how do you do that?
City limits. They're already drawn
If we
for us.
can.
And,
I think they'll come up with the money.
and even if we were to decide that today, we would have to give the EMS district notice, because the contract renews on October 1. So we'd need to do it at least a year, because we have to give them notice that we're no longer going to provide that service in that district. And so we'd almost have to do it for at least a year and give them notice that we're not going to renew in October of '24 for the next year.
Are there some timelines that we have set to have a response from the county on this? It seems like we have, right now, we have the leverage. Leverage being, we eliminate service out of the county, which is a emotional and possibly illegal issue.
That's difficult.
Yeah,
It
but,
would be.
do we have any kind of timeline?
Legal obligation do we have to provide county with services?
Well, we have an agreement with them right now, and we receive part of the funds. from
Okay,
county
but if we let them know in October that a year from now, we've met our obligation, correct?
However long that agreement is it a year agreement?
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't have any, I mean, we do
I
it for you.
I don't know that we want to have a perceived threat or leverage. I think that county leadership has acknowledged in some discussions that they understand that the funding vehicle in place, the 3 mills, is just not adequate. And they are willing to explore some opportunities to enhance that revenue stream so that we can continue to provide not only quality service inside city limits, but also out in the county as well. And it's your all's choice. I'm just presenting my plan, and of course, Councilman Long's presenting his ideals, and there's 6 more that vote, so I mean, you all will make the final decision, not me. I'm just presenting you my plan.
I'd just like to see at least 1 ambulance in city limits at all times, because when I question them, sometimes there's not any here.
I don't know how you do that when you're providing service to everybody.
Well, that's why we need more money.
I'm not
But I don't think we would
Sure,
do
I
a village
can-
without a vote of the people.
answer that question tonight.
I think there's a call, you gotta go. I think there's a call, you gotta go.
No, I understand that.
I honestly don't know if you'd get a vote of the people in favor of it unless the people felt a hardship. Otherwise, why would they vote in favor of it?
I don't know that it has to go to a vote, does it? Can't the county just allocate more of the millage over to us through a vote of the commissioners?
The current mill levy for the county, my understanding is presently earmarked, and it's capped. So in some states, yes, you can add to your general fund mill levy as a county if you want to fund other things. That is probably not an opportunity. One opportunity would be for the state to add in some way where there can be more than 3 mills property tax for EMS service. That's set by state constitution, so that's why that's difficult to change, and a lot of farm-related organizations fight any type of mill levy increase. The other option to discuss with the county would be their sales taxes coming up for renewal. If a portion of that sales tax, when it's renewed, would be earmarked for EMT service in the county. Another option would be to work with utilities companies like OG&E and have a ambulance fee added to all of the utility bills.
Well,
Of
that's
course,
what I was gonna bring up
that-
next.
That has been, I think, Central Rural Electric has been receptive to that, but most of our customers, OG&E, and my understanding, OG&E has not been receptive to this point.
But they do that in the village,
Yes.
so I wonder why they're not, I don't know if it goes through OG&E or if it goes through their water
Maybe
bill.
another utility provider that does it.
So who's negotiating with the county on this deal on our behalf?
Probably city manager and others. But I'd be glad to hand it off.
No, I'm just wondering, those are ongoing right now, I guess?
We've had some preliminary discussions, but we needed to wait until after the election because we didn't want it to become a election issue for various candidates, so we wanted to wait until after the election was resolved.
Makes sense. Okay. We have an opportunity to revisit this at the retreat.
We can put it on the agenda. Do you mean the EMT or entire budget?
MT.
EMT, yes, we can make that an agenda item. And as indicated, we can have another budget workshop 2 weeks from now if you all feel the need. Otherwise, the budget would come back to you in the form of a budget hearing for consideration of adoption in the first meeting in September.
Okay. Any other questions, Leroy? None? Workshop adjourned.
60 seconds. So moved.
Okay, call to order our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of August 2nd. Second item on, whoops, I'm sorry. I have jumped the gun here, haven't I? I have really moved on. Would you please stand and join Councilman Taylor in the salute to the flag and remain standing for our prayer. Pastor?
God, you are creator, guide, and watch over us. You use everything that happens for your purposes and glory. Help us to hear your voice and walk in your wisdom. Help us to honor you in what we think, say, and do. Thank you for providing for our every need and so much more. Help us to care for others like you do, and to forgive as we've been forgiven. Please keep us from our own selfishness, and help us to build a city that honors you and reflects your love for us. Thank you for being with us in every difficult circumstance and joyful breath. You are God and worthy of glory, honor, and praise. Amen.
Amen. Awesome, Pastor. Again, thank you very much. Now, I call to order our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of August 2nd. Second item on the agenda is public comments, community announcements or recognitions. Do we have any? No, we do not. Third item is consent agenda items A and B. A is the approval of the minutes of July 19, 2022 Public Works Authority meeting, and B is the approval of the audit engagement letter with E. Frink and Associates to provide services for fiscal year 2022. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes, please.
All votes right?
See the votes. Unanimous approval then of the consent agenda items by all council present. Item number 4, discussion and acceptance of the 2021 annual financial statements and independent auditors report. Kim, are you taking the lead on that?
I will until we get Ann online. Ann Elfrink with Elfrink and Associates is going to present the audit, and we are going to connect with her via Zoom. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Here we go.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, very good.
Can't see
Well,
it.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, I'm pleased to present our audit of the financial statements for the City of Guthrie for the year ended September 30th, 2021. The entities we audited include the City of Guthrie and the blended component units, the City of Guthrie Public Works Authority, the City of Guthrie Industrial Development Authority. The Guthrie Public Transportation Authority and the Guthrie Transportation Authority are both inactive entities, so we're not included. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with the accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This includes the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements that are free from the material in the statement, whether due to fraud or error. We had 5 opinion units. Those included the governmental activities, which is basically your governmental funds aggregated and adjusted for an accrual basis of accounting and economic resources measurement. Basically, it treats capital assets, pension liabilities, and then your debt different than the fund level does. The second opinion unit is business time activities, and which is similar in the funds. They have the same measurement focus in both areas. And then each major fund, which includes the general fund and then the Guthrie Public Works Authority. The final opinion unit was the aggregate remaining fund information for your non-major funds. In all cases, all 5 opinion units, our opinion that the financial statements were fairly stated in keeping with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States is unmodified, which is a clean opinion. There were no changes in your financial statement presentation from the prior year as far as accounting, major accounting, implementation, etc. You had significant estimates in the financial statements. Those included the useful life of capital assets, which is an estimate and can vary from what your full experience is. We, in addition, the net pension liability has a significant number of estimates that can vary, and as well as other post-employment benefits. And so these can vary. We have reviewed the key factor assumptions used in each of these estimates and assumptions and determined that they're reasonable in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. The financial statement disclosures are true, consistent, and clear. In accordance with government auditing standards, we have also issued a second report that's included in your financial statement area. We actually have 3 reports this year. So one was the opinion report, which I just covered. Now we're moving to the report that's required by governmental auditing standards. And we have issued our report on our consideration of the city's internal control for financial reporting and our test of its compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements, and other matters. The purpose of that report is to describe the scope of our testing and not to issue an opinion, however. The results of our testing disclose no deficiencies that are considered to be material to the financial statements or otherwise required to be reported as a finding. However, when we identify opportunities for improvement in areas we have selected for testing, we may communicate them to management either orally or in writing. Because the third report is because the city had more than $750,000 in expenditures of federal grant awards, a single audit was required under the uniform guidance. We identified 2 major programs. One was the capitalization grants Clean Water State Revolving Fund, and that was for the wastewater treatment plant improvements. For that particular, it's a loan, and you've started taking draws on that loan during this fiscal year. In starting that, the loan in total is 75% federal source and 25% state source. And we identify the federal portion and confirm that with OWRE. So they tell us, basically, a lot of times they'll utilize the state source first, and then because there's a little bit more flexibility there, and then they move federal source. So the total that was identified, including accruals, was $840,582 on that particular grant. Well, it was not a grant, it's a loan. That revolving fund, and it has federal source money, so it's required to be audited under the single audit. The second, which is a grant, is the Community Facilities Direct Loans and Grants. We had to pull in another grant to get to our percentage that we were required to hit for that single audit. And that particular one was $227,500, which is partial funding for a fire truck. Okay, so that's the 3 reports. Financial highlights on your financial statements for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2021. The city's total net position increased by $3.8 million, or 11.7% from the prior year. So net position is total assets plus deferred outflows minus liabilities minus deferred inflows gives you that net position, and it increased by 11.7%. At September 30th, 2021, the general fund reported an unassigned fund balance of $2.5 million. We look at that as an indication of health and the city's ability to meet its obligations. And that is approximately 80 days of expenditures in the range, the recommended range, 60 to 90, so you're right in there. Expenditures in every functional area in the general fund were below appropriations, which that indicates good budgetary controls, both at the departmental level and at the finance and administrative level. Okay, another point is capital asset additions exceeded depreciation by approximately $2.6 million. This means that you're not just replacing your assets as they're wearing out, but you've also increased your asset investment in assets that provide services to citizens. You issued 2 notes during the year. One was, and they're both Clean Water State Revolving Fund promissory notes, both are at 8 million each. However, you did not have all of that outstanding. You just started taking draws on those. And that 8 million was at 1.45%, which is a very attractive interest rate going forward. Your pension plans, this is the final thing. Pension plans measurement date was June 30th, 2021. And your, in each instance, the position of your pension increased. So the net funding position increased. OMRF is actually a little overfunded. It's at 116.94%, which is an increase from prior year's 96.45%. So you're a little overfunded on your OMRF. You don't have a liability, you have an asset because your resources to fund the pension exceed the actuary's determination of what your obligations will be. Your police fund also was an asset. It's overfunded, and it is funded, and this is the statewide plan, 117.07%, which is an increase from last year's 95.8%. The city's cost share of that total plan increased from 0.4380 of 1% to 0.4495. So it's getting closer to a half of 1% of the state's total. The fire pension plan also had a positive increase, but it's still underfunded, but not nearly as dramatically as it historically has been. It's made a major leap forward, funded 84.24%, which is an increase from last year's 69.98%. And for those of you that follow the fire fund, it had been running about 70% each year, plus or minus. So that's a significant improvement. The city's cost share increased from 0.511 so a little over 0.5% to 0.534 basically. So in both instances, your share of the total pension plan is increasing relative to other entities that are sharing in the plan. And so with that, that's what I have to share. And do you have any questions?
Any questions from the council?
We were very impressed with your staff and your management of the city. We had excellent cooperation and also had the feeling that there was a very accounting and accountability was very important to the city. So the environment that we engaged in, this was our first year to audit the city, and the environment was very strong in that area, very comfortable.
Yeah, we think they're pretty great too. Any other comments or questions?
Great job. I appreciate it.
Good, good. Well, I'll entertain a motion then to accept the audit report as presented.
So moved.
A motion, is there a second? I have a motion and a second. Any other questions, discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
Let's see the votes. Unanimous approval of the audit as presented by the councilman present. Thank you very much for that presentation. We appreciate your efforts and your insights.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Item number 5, discussion and possible action to approve change order number 2 with OR Construction for the sewer system improvement project. Leroy? Jenny?
I can cover it real quick. It's pretty simple. It's just change order number 2 covers the cost of point repair required at the intersection of Noble and Blake. And this is part of our CMOM sewer replacement project.
Any questions by the council?
So moved.
We have a motion then to approve change order number 2. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote Strand.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from those councilmen present to approve change order number 2. That being the last item on our agenda, Public Works Authority meeting is adjourned. Call to order our city council meeting of August 2nd. Second item is the consent agenda items A, B, and C. A is the approval of the minutes of July 19th city council meeting. B is the confirmation of the Public Works action on accepting the financial statement and audit report that we just received. C is confirmation of action on approving the audit engagement letter from EFRIC, with EFRIC and Associates for services for FY 2022. I'm sorry, there is a D on there. Consent item D is the approval of the fiscal year 2023 school resource officer agreement with the city of Guthrie and the Guthrie School District of Logan County.
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, any other discussion? Submit your votes.
Right.
I'll vote Strand.
Let's see the votes. Unanimous approval of consent agenda items A, B, C, and D for approval. Item number 3, discussion and possible action to reappoint Jonathan McClinn and Carrie Ann Fryer to the Guthrie Housing Authority Board of Commissioners for a 3-year term through August 31st, 2025. You have that. That was submitted by the Guthrie Housing Authority Board, their recommendation. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote Strand.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to approve the reappointment of Jonathan McClinn and Carrie Ann Fryer to the Guthrie Housing Authority Board through August 31st, 2025. Item number 4, discussion and possible action to confirm the mayor's nomination of Dr. Kent Smith, Jr. for a 3-year term through June 30th of 2025 on the Guthrie Edmond Regional Airport Board. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote Strand.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to confirm the nomination of Dr. Kent Smith for a 3-year term with the Guthrie Edmond Regional Airport Board. Item number 5, discussion and possible action to approve resolution number 2022-25, approving the process for approving of invoices related to the Community Development Block Grant Project. Leroy?
This is something new for the Department of Commerce on our CDBG grant for the water line, water line replacement along division. It just sets up a process that you all will have to vote and approve each of the pay requests and expenditures, and this just establishes that procedure.
Okay. So that, what that procedure will entail.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
I'll vote Strand.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from all the councilmen present to approve the resolution 2022-25. Item number 6, discussion and possible action to approve execution of the architectural services agreement with Blatt Architecture for the sum of $32,300 for design of the Highland Hall interior renovation project.
We set aside $476,000 of CARE Act funds to do some interior remodeling of the Highland Hall. We actually opened bids August 5th. Our architect that we've used on several projects did this project as well. He realized at some point that he had never actually sent us an agreement for his services or invoice.
So he
Nice,
open
free.
bids.
did it for
Yeah.
free.
We like that.
Well, we weren't going to mention it. So this is kind of catch up to formalize that agreement so that we can pay him for the services that he provided.
Okay, have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any other discussion?
But we agreed to those at one point. I don't remember that number, but.
Yeah.
Maybe not that
Yeah.
exact number,
Yeah.
but we agreed to it, yes.
We have a motion and a second. Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from Councilman Present to approve those architectural services agreement with Blatt Architecture. Item number 7, city manager report.
I don't have any additional report tonight, but I did send you out some staff notes a week or so ago on various projects and where we're at. And I'm in the process of updating that because some of our grants change constantly, so you'll be getting another one, but I don't know that you want me to go through all those tonight.
Okay? That would be another couple hours worth.
It'll be a while.
Item number 8, comments from city council, Vice Mayor Case.
Stay cool, people. It's hotter than blue blazes outside. I think I just about went down today. I stopped sweating, started getting a headache. I said, let's go home. But it's miserable out there, so be safe.
Councilman Long.
Red Brick Nights for August is coming up this
Saturday.
Saturday, so join us downtown for Red Brick Nights.
Good, good. Councilman Bothroyd.
I'm good, nothing tonight.
Councilman Taylor.
Thank you, staff. Man, you guys had a lot of stuff tonight. I appreciate everything being done from all of you today. And also, I think, I believe it's tomorrow, Chief, for Mark Bruning's funeral. So sorry to hear about that. And we'll go from there. That's it.
Okay. Well, as the Vice Mayor mentioned, it's hot outside. Just thank you to all the city staff, but especially those that are working outside, attending staff, anybody that's working outside, streets, parks, whatever, to do that and do the great work that they do under extreme circumstances is phenomenal, and they just carry on. Sometimes I think we just expect that because the services have been so great, but it's not without a lot of effort and toil, and in this case, sweat. So appreciate that. Please pass that on to any of your folks that are working outside. We have an aviation program going on for kids, right? Friday? From 9 to 3? Yes. Is that right? For kids 9 to 12 years old. Free airplane rides, is that still true? Could I be in?
You're not a kid, Steve.
Come on, stretch that. Anyway, great opportunity out at our great airport to introduce our younger generation to aviation. And Shalon, thank you and your staff for making that happen yet again. Leroy mentioned that he had shared with all the council a multiple-page listing of activities that are going on that the staff are engaged with. The number of grants that the staff is presenting and leveraging the city's money, I think is really phenomenal. And when you put it in the list as Leroy has done, is pretty amazing. So thank you, Leroy, as the leader, and all of the staff, because I know all of you are writing. I think just about all the staff are writing. Our directors are writing grant proposals to stretch their money.
Correct.
So I really, really appreciate that.
Have to give him a raise.
Must be an inside joke going on down there.
It is.
But that's all right. That's all right. Okay, last thoughts? Not having any, unless you want to share your...
No, I'll leave you alone.
We're adjourned. Thank you.